Dude, welcome back.
Dude,
Episode 2.
here we are. We're still
Here
here,
we
believe it
are.
or not. Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised we made it this far. I really am.
In life?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Surmising up to this episode for sure. To episode 2, 100%.
Yeah, everything we've ever done has led us right here to where we are.
True.
Yeah.
Including something you did last week.
Uh-huh.
We last week on the show we spoke about the video game adaptation curse, and then
Indeed.
pretty quickly after you saw the Mario movie.
I did. I did indeed. Unintentionally. Was not the plan, but I saw it on a whim, you could say.
On a whim.
Yeah, on a whim. I think that was the
Uh,
best way to see it. If I
Give
could
us
pick a way.
your 15-second review.
15-second review? Oh, God. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we're in the TikTok generation. We got to keep it quick.
The Mario movie is okay. It's good. It's pretty
It's
good.
a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie. Like and I mean that not in a negative way. Oh, 15 seconds. But it's okay. It's fun. It's a kids movie. Like I enjoyed it. I had fun. I laughed a lot. Visuals are amazing. If I had kids, I'd take them. I'd take them probably about 20 times, and I would probably have fun too. So
I got to go check that out. I'm just waiting
yeah.
for the Minions Mario crossover.
Oh, it's coming, dude. Illumination. Oh, they got
Taking over the world.
every finger in every pie for sure.
Illumination, keep your fingers out of my pie, please.
Nintendo was like, bring those fingers over here.
Dude, that's amazing. Would you say that Mario continued the trend of Last of Us in staying away from horrendous video game adaptations? Or
To be honest, yeah. I went into the Mario movie with, I didn't want it to be bad, but I certainly didn't have high expectations. And I think it's very funny. Like, it is not in any way like, in the same caliber as something like The Last of Us, which is telling a super mature story. But
Yeah.
weirdly enough, it actually did accomplish the same thing, I think, of like respecting the source material, respecting like the tone, the art,
That's
just
awesome.
the fun of it. Like it felt
Just
like a
none of
Mario
the voice
movie.
actors.
No, none of those actors. Well, Charles Martinet is in the movie.
Oh, he
Spoilers. I'm
is?
not going to say who he is. Well, unless you want to know. I don't know if anyone cares. He
That's
voices like
that's
two
that's
characters.
nice though. That is
Yeah,
sweet that
yeah.
that they at least were not like, because I'm pretty sure when they announced like the acting, he came out and was like kind of pissed. I think he was like publicly kind of like, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Well, they had said like, oh, he's like additional voice guest casting, performances by Charles Martinet or whatever. So
Okay.
yeah, I wish there was more
He's
of
such
him,
a
but
he's such a core part of the universe that
he
it's hard to
is.
imagine like not being in it at all.
Yeah, and he's a really nice guy. From what I've
Yeah.
heard, I've never met him, but like he
Let's
seems
hope,
like a
man.
really nice
Everybody's
guy.
falling like flies these days.
I know.
All the nice guys.
Charles, don't let us down.
Charles, stay pure, please.
Charles,
The last stand.
You've done so
standing
well
with the flag, the Mario flag,
of a true gentleman.
against accusations, an army of accusations coming for him.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. Like it maintains a lot of that tone of like the games. They do their own thing for sure. It's like kind of an isekai like anime story. Of like Mario gets pulled into another universe from Brooklyn, but which isn't in any of the games. But it makes perfect sense, I think, within like the canon,
Right.
quote unquote of Mario. It's like just like goofy, like it's like a Bowser kidnapping Peach thing. Like it's classic. It's classic Mario, and it's fun, and I had a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm glad you had fun with that one, because it seems like we're rubber banding back immediately to cursed video game adaptions, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about with the first topic
boy.
today.
What a generation to be alive in.
So, lucky us, we got the new trailer earlier this week for Gran Turismo, which I don't even think. Here, let me see if I can play it on mute here. Yeah, Gran Turismo, which the first trailer makes it seem like the movie hates gamers. So you watched this trailer, right?
I sure did. Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
My thoughts were that like I do kind of dig it.
You liked it?
Yeah, unexpectedly.
Okay.
But I did agree with like I was like, it's so funny because it's like this is clearly about a game franchise, and like, you know, the whole thing is that he's like a gamer who's chasing his dreams, and like there's all these jokes where it's just like, oh, like nerdy gamers who don't know how
Dude,
to, you know, run or use their bodies or never touched
so
grass.
funny.
Just constant.
This movie hates gamers to the max. You guys ready to use your legs? Yo, what? I use my
Yeah.
legs every day when I go to get my G Fuel between games, dude. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I gotta walk down the hallway to, you know, refill my Mountain Dew jug.
Dude, it so I'm kind of in the camp of like it just looks like the craziest product placement ever. Which like
Yeah,
I
yeah, for
guess
sure.
all video game adaptations are like any like the Barbie movie I guess is the same thing.
Yeah.
But like I think the trailer ends with like a title card of like play it now on PlayStation. And it's like, oh my god, can we at least have some separation of concern here, please?
Yeah. It's funny, like the thing about this that I think is interesting is like going back to about Gran Turismo compared to like, you know, The Last of Us or Mario, two things that I think work pretty well, or, you know, very well in some cases. Like, how are you going to make a, like, this is in some way respecting like the source material? Because like, I thought this article here on The Verge like made an interesting, or well, it was, one of the other ways that, one of the other articles about it is like, oh, it's a thing among like sim racing gamers is, you know, like wanting to be like real drivers. That's part of the culture, feeling like, you know, you've
Right.
practiced, you've learned so much. And so in a way, like a movie about a Gran Turismo player who becomes a real race car driver is like the most Gran Turismo racing sim
Yeah,
movie you
yeah.
could possibly make.
It's the
And
best
like,
way you could handle it, honestly.
yeah, and in a way it's
Uh
like it is kind of like respecting the culture of the games, which is funny.
well, not only is it respecting the culture, it's based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know this?
I didn't until I saw the trailer and I saw it say based on a true story, and I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
So let me actually. Are you aware of the true story?
I am now because I did a little research on it,
You did
but
a little research. Okay,
enlighten
so
our listeners.
let me swap over here. So the true story that the Gran Turismo movie is based on is actually on a man named what's his? Hold on, let me get his name here. Oh, Jan Mardenborough, a super fan who won the GT Academy in 2011. He was the program's youngest winner, beating 90,000 other applicants. Though he later debuted as a professional racer and held his own on some of the most difficult tracks in the world, Gran Turismo will focus on the time at the Academy, which is actually kind of interesting. That
Hmm.
actually is kind of crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that is wild.
And I know you have like you've used like full racing sim setups before too.
Yeah, I there was a period of time
Do
where I
you
was
feel
like,
cheated
what of not being able to.
not being in the Gran Turismo Academy and having a life story next to David Harbaugh made about you?
Yeah, I guess I could have applied. I missed my chance. I missed my shot.
In
Um,
another universe, you're cursing the name of Jan Mardenborough.
because he beat
Jan,
me.
Jan.
Jan,
You were second.
he cheated. His PS4 was hacked.
He cut my brakes out, and by that I mean he
He
ripped out my
unplugged my
R
wheel.
my he he ripped out my L2 button.
Yeah, I was into sim racing for a bit of time, and I got a Logitech wheel and everything. Like I had the whole setup, and it's true. There is that feeling of like you just get so into it that you're like, I've never really cared that much about driving or cars. Like, but getting into that, I was like, oh man, like I want to go to a racetrack. Like I really want to do
To try
this.
it out, yeah.
Yeah, I want to try
I
it out. You know,
I want to like get into flying sims. I
oh,
think
those are
that would be
fun.
super cool.
Those are
And then
super
if
fun.
anything ever happens on an airplane, I can be like, when someone's like, "Does anyone know how to fly a plane?" I can be like, "Done it on my PC.
Is there a
Get me
pilot
to
on
the
board?
get me to the academy." They
Yeah,
should
you
do
can be
this
the
with
hero.
flying sims.
Oh
And
my
this is
god,
how we should get our new this is how we should get new uh FAA pilots
Microsoft Flight Simulator, the movie.
based on a true
Based on a
story that
true
ended in
story.
catastrophe.
The tragedy,
um
yeah, it's a tragedy.
um but one thing that is interesting about this movie is that they got Neil Blomkamp to direct it, who is the dude who did District 9, Chappie, and
Yeah, yeah.
Are those his two biggest ones? Oh, he did Elysium as well, which I actually
Hmm.
haven't seen. Elysium is interesting because I'm pretty sure this was supposed to originally be the Halo movie, and then they like stripped it of the Halo parts and made it like a different thing. But I think in the movie there's still
Interesting.
like a big Halo ring.
Isn't that the one with Matt Damon, and he's trying to
Yeah.
like where all the rich people
Hmm.
go to Elysium, and he's like trying to get in or something.
And I think the funny thing is that Master Chief himself is actually even born on a planet called Elysium,
We could have had Matt Damon playing Master Chief.
playing
Yeah.
instead of what's his name,
Pablo Schreiber.
Pablo Schreiber. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you know
damn,
what, dude?
stiff competition.
This day and age, all these bullshit diversity hires robbing us of greatness, dude. Robbing us of
I'm pretty
greatness.
sure Pablo is very white as well.
Is he really?
I don't know. Maybe.
His name's Pablo. He's more diverse than Matt Damon.
That's true. More diverse than I am, that's for sure.
Go off, Pablo. I still haven't watched it, and I probably never will. But yeah, so we got Gran Turismo, and then this is a special one here. This is a real, true special moment. More cursed video game adaptions. We have Twisted Metal coming to Peacock, starring Anthony Mackie and everybody's favorite Sweet Tooth. I am thoroughly upset by this one, and like I don't even have like
a horse in the race.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't even have a deep connection to Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal was like, I described Twisted Metal as like the game that you played at your neighbor's house in the basement. Like that was like, it was like one of your early game experiences. Like you didn't even have like a PlayStation yet,
That's so
and like
accurate. That's so real.
and your cool neighbor did, who was like a year or two older, and they're like, yo, come play this game, Twisted Metal, and you're like,
I have the
whoa,
same
who's
memory.
this?
That's so weird. Like
Really?
I picture myself in another person's basement playing Twisted Metal.
That is what this game is to me, and
Yeah.
and I don't think I played any of them after that.
I don't think I did either.
But it's one of those games that like it stays. It has such strong imagery that it stays with you forever.
It's funny that they're even doing this because it's like, I mean, when's the last Twisted Metal game? Let's see. When did the last Twisted Metal game come out in the franchise? Because it's one of those things where like,
I think it's going to be shockingly recent.
Yeah, probably. Let's see.
While you're looking that up, though,
latest release was Twisted Metal, which was sort of a reboot in 2012 on the PlayStation 3.
Wow, really?
Yeah, over 10 years ago.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah,
I did not know that. I'll play this trailer on mute as well, actually, if I can. But there's really not much to see in this trailer. It's basically just Anthony Mackie like dancing in his car to a really good song, "You Are My Sunshine" by Len.
Mm-hmm. He's giving the camera a little action.
He's giving the camera a little action, and then you get the classic, the new standard in all media, the post credit scene, where you see Sweet Tooth vaguely. Oh, and I didn't realize it's like a dystopia in Las Vegas.
Yeah. The icon Sweet Tooth, everybody's favorite character in PlayStation All Stars. Was he in PlayStation All Stars? I don't even know.
I feel like he had to have been.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing is that Sweet Tooth is actually being voiced by Will Arnett.
That's wild. That's really wild.
So interesting to me. I don't really understand it. He's also an executive producer on the project, which like, I don't know. This whole thing is very confusing to me, and I feel like it falls squarely in the camp of not needed.
It is very strange. Like we were saying, it's a franchise that, we know about it. We're like 30-something-year-old people played games growing up. So it's like, yeah, of course I know Twisted Metal, but like we haven't played it in forever. We played it maybe like once in our lives years ago, and we still remember it. So it's like, of all the franchises to pick, to make a TV show out of, it's like, that's the one. It's so wild. It's just so weird, like completely out of left field. Like,
100% out of left field. It's super, super random. The fact that Will Arnett's involved is like even more random and confusing. And they're citing things like based on an original take from Deadpool and Zombieland writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. I don't know. There's something about I kind of misread that sentence. At first I thought they were like taking inspiration from Deadpool. I didn't realize it was writers from that. But I just feel like ever since Deadpool came out, I just see Deadpool as a reference for fucking anything that's like somewhat like supposed to have funny, like a villain or like a murderer that's like kind of witty.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy's like Deadpool meets Metallica meets like ice cream.
Yeah.
What are you, bro? What are you talking about? So, are you okay?
Are you good? Have you
I don't
seen
know, man.
another movie ever?
Yeah, I've seen Deadpool too. More dead, more pool.
This is
Speaking of,
another one where, oh, what were you gonna say?
no, go for it.
This is another one where, like, I also recognize that this looks incredibly stupid, but at the same time, it's like, who who knows, man? Like, it's Twisted Metal. Like, there is no story. There's no like it.
That's true.
Respecting the source material for Twisted Metal, I think, is literally just making a ridiculous show or movie about like people in cars with guns on it, like driving around and blowing each other up, and like that looks like what they're doing. So it's like,
Yeah,
is it a good Twisted Metal adaptation? We'll see. It looks like it might be. It's just funny.
it's like you're saying, because I feel like it's like there is no good Twisted Metal adaptation.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just such an insane mishmash of explosions. Like that's what Twisted Metal is, at
I
least to
feel
me.
like,
There's probably some Twisted Metal heads out there who like know all the lore and like
oh yeah,
are deep in on it, but like to
they're
me,
hyped.
Twisted Metal is like violent car fights, explosions, and a clown murderer who's not written by Stephen King.
That's pretty much it. I think that is actually Twisted Metal, like in a nutshell. It would be stranger to me if it were being adapted and it looked like serious, or like it
Yeah.
took itself seriously. I think like a weird, campy kind of thing like this is probably the best way you could do it. It's just wild. There's like so much stuff getting made. It feels like Sony was just like, throwing out their IPs there for a while.
And I think the stream, like everything being on a streamer, it's like the new like straight to DVD.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like everything being on a streamer is just like, I don't know, the quality is so low
yeah,
on the streamers that it like just makes me worried.
yeah.
I don't know. If anything, if it sucks, here's what we're doing. We're blaming the writer's strike, okay?
Oh man, yeah. I wonder if
But
that's going to affect these things as well.
it did last time. It did last time. Last time like a bunch like
Yeah.
Heroes like fell off because of the writer's strike in like 2008 or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Whenever
yeah,
it
yeah.
was.
I mean, tons of shows. It's curious to see, and I'm curious to see in the age of streaming, what that does.
Dude, I will never forget this because I was so into Heroes when it was on air.
Yeah,
And I was like vaguely aware of the writer's strike. Like, I was like, we were like early in high school. So
yeah.
we
I
were a
wasn't
lot
thinking about that
younger.
stuff. Yeah.
And I'll never ever forget. It was like Hero season 2 or 3. It's like
Mhm.
episode 6 or 7, right? So like there's supposed to be a lot more. That's like half a season, if that. Especially back
Yeah.
then when seasons were like 21 episodes. And there's season 2 or 3. There's like this virus that some villain is trying to unleash that'll kill like everybody with that has powers.
Yeah.
And the virus is in a vault, like in a vial, and this is like episode 7, and the vial gets knocked over, the vault is open, and as it's crashing to the ground, the vault, like somebody closes the vault as it shatters, and that's the end of the season. It's just like it was the clearest like, oh, we were gonna like have this virus get out, or like something else was gonna happen, but the writer's strike, so we just have to end the season.
Yeah. We ran out. We could not make the show.
Yeah, we could not make the show, and it was just like,
Yeah.
wow, good thing we saved the world by closing that vault door.
Man, good thing that door got closed.
That was literally the climax of the season.
Yeah.
Good thing that door got closed. So sorry, Twisted Metal. That's probably what's gonna happen to you.
Yeah, you're getting one season.
You get 1 season, 6 episodes, and then we'll blame the writer's strike. But
Yeah.
we'll see, man. We'll see.
I'm game, man. I'm game to see it all. Like, who cares? Make the shows,
Yeah,
make the
no.
movies. It couldn't be
Whatever.
worse than what came before. Honest to God,
Whatever.
like they could not be worse than the game movies we got growing up, because those were bad for the most part. Except for Silent Hill, that one was pretty good, I think.
And
But
honestly, the OG Mario movie, like I know it's bad, but it's like so bad it's good. I love that movie. I think it's
that's
awesome.
the amazing thing about that movie. It truly is so terrible as a Mario adaptation, but like as a weird 80s like
Yeah, it's like a cool, weird '80s movie
it's
that
like
was
Blade
all
Runner.
practical and like
Yeah.
dark and weird and like
It's like a Blade Runner pastiche with like weird video game inside jokes and stuff.
one of the Mario movie sequels should 100% be a remake of that one.
Oh my god, with like the Dennis Hopper version of King Koopa and like weird Goombas in their tiny heads.
Dude, they didn't even call him Bowser. They called him King Koopa.
Oh my god. What a
They
weird
went
time.
OG.
That Bob Hoskins thought that movie almost ended his career. He almost stopped acting because he hated it so much. He
Dude.
played Mario, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. Serious British actor. Serious British
John
actor.
Leguizamo was Luigi, right?
Yeah, most famously, yeah, his best role of all time.
Shout out John.
Shout out John.
But yeah, we'll have to see. We'll see what goes on, man. I don't know. There's so many, all these streamer shows. It's too much. But one thing with everybody knows that streamers is that people love to Netflix and chill. And what happens when Netflix and chilling happens? Babies are made. You know who else is making babies? Segue. PlayStation 5. An article from this week has come out saying that humanity used a PS5 controller to inject sperm with a robot, ending with the creation of real babies.
Ending with the creation of real babies.
Ending with the creation. The experiment ended with the birth of 2 baby girls, I think, actually.
Yeah. Congratulations to everyone involved.
This article says Sony keeps saying that play has no limits, and our researchers prove that company right. A robot controlled with a PlayStation 5 DualSense controller managed to inject human sperm into human eggs, and the resulting babies were just recently born. It's all part of an attempt to make an in vitro fertilization easier and more affordable. The MIT Technology Review reports that the experiment took place in the New York Hope Fertility Center in New York, New York. Researchers were using a shout out. What up? Researchers were using a sperm robot made by a startup called Overture Life to fertilize some eggs. They apparently decided to sync it with the PS5 DualSense, which then allowed someone with no real experience to look through a microscope camera, move the robotic needle, and successfully deposited single sperm into several eggs. 2 baby girls have reportedly now been born from the process, which Overture claims is the first fertilization via sperm bot. Sperm bot. I like how they have sperm bot in the article with Astrobot just right above it. New level unlocked. New level unlocked.
Yeah, it's like the picture makes it seem like Astrobot was like somehow involved in this.
Yeah.
Like he was the sperm bot.
It's so funny because like this article reminds me of when Microsoft was like working with the U.S. Army to like have like the Kinect camera. They were doing projects with the Kinect camera, but also I'm pretty sure they use like Xbox controllers to control like drones and shit.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Microsoft's out here making war. PlayStation's out here making love. That's what we like to see.
That's what we like to see.
PlayStation. But yeah, this is wild. And I in vitro fertilization is like a very interesting and important process, I think. Like there's a lot of infertility across the country, so this is pretty sick. This is pretty cool. This is just like a cool, nice, uplifting article, I feel like.
And this kind of thing is super cool to see because, you know, one, it's hilarious. Like that's just such a funny headline.
Right.
Like some gamer with his DualSense, like, you know, controlling a little bot. Well, doesn't have to be a gamer, but it's this kind of thing is so cool because it's just the crossing of technologies. You know, like the more we advance in one direction and create, you know, better devices for input and that sort of thing, like you can use it for stuff like this. Like that's super cool. They didn't have controllers that were like probably as accurate or as good for something like this as the DualSense 20, 30 years ago. You know, we had like NES controllers and GameCube controllers. Yeah, could do IVF with a GameCube controller. You ever held one of those freaking things?
If it was Smash Ultimate Pro players, they would disagree. They would hard disagree.
They're up tilts, up tilts, up tilts.
My C-stick is broken.
I missed.
My up smash won't work.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see. I mean, there's also some stuff about like the Steam Deck being used to control turrets in the Ukrainian conflict, like all that sort of thing. It's like, yeah. There's like different.
Oh, I did see that. That was also, I think that one kind of slipped me by.
Yeah, like different ways of, you know, obviously that's, you know, war versus, you know, creation of life and medical stuff, but it's like at the same time it's the same interesting use of, you know, different technologies in different places. Like input devices have gotten so much more advanced. Especially accessible ones. I think, you know, everything has Bluetooth now. You know, there's different, it's cool. It's cool to see, you know, one way or the other, whether it's a, you know, a violent or a productive end, I suppose.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see consumer tech get like, I like how they phrase it. Like they just decided to sync it. They just decided to sync it to the sperm bot.
Yeah, they were like, it's got a, it's just, you know, it's got a driver for the DualSense.
You hit the sync button on the back, you hold it for 3 seconds until the blue light is blinking, and then you turn on the DualSense and you put in, You hit the code. You
Yeah,
put the
of
code
course. You press the PlayStation button and it turns on and starts vibrating or whatever.
in. Yeah, once you see the blue light go solid, your sperm bot's ready to go.
It's all warmed up and ready to go.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's interesting to see like consumer products being used more and more in like, especially from the video game industry specifically, in like
Mhm.
ways that are like directly impacting society, whether it's good or bad. It's
Yeah, for
kind of
sure.
scary, but it is cool.
Very, very interesting.
All right, what else do we have here? Next up, I don't know if you saw this. This was actually super interesting. Um, so this actually came out in September, but somebody
Oh yeah.
online made a Mario demo in
Mhm.
Unreal Engine 5. Um,
Oh yeah, these are always a lot of fun.
this is really interesting. I mean, I have
Oh
like
shit.
some thoughts on this, and yeah, oh, this
Oh,
is kind of a
dude, that
jam.
that is a bop.
It's kind of a bop. It is kind of a bop. But like, obviously, this kind of thing, I feel like we see tech demos like this come out
Yeah.
like every couple months, where someone will create some loved IP in like a new, state of the art technology engine or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like it always sparks the debate of like, is it good or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think you see very heated opinions one way or the other. Some people share the video on Facebook and they're like, "Bro, like coolest thing I've ever seen. Can you believe it?" And then other people are like, "This looks like absolute tasteless
trash.
garbage."
Yeah. Which I think this is impressive, right? And I
Oh
think
wow, that ending.
oh yeah. I think they just ripped. I think the very end is just a rip of Bowser and like, what is that Super Mario 64? No, that's not Super Mario 64.
No, that's just
What
a
is that?
random ass
Bowser
asset
image?
of Bowser they probably got on
Oh, he's like,
this
oh
massive flip
dear
website.
God. That's Bowser's Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne face. But
That's actually a
like,
scene from the movie.
what do you think of this? Like, do you think this looks good? Do you think this looks like soulless? How do you feel about this?
It's interesting. I think it's a super subjective thing, but I think it kind of looks like crap personally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
technically speaking, like obviously, yeah, like it looks sick. Like
Right.
super high res.
Aesthetically, it looks awesome.
Yeah, like it's very impressive, but it's the kind of thing that I think we see a lot with. We see it in movies too, and like directors will put on like lens flares and motion blur and like film grain, like they turn every like post processing effect on, and we see that happen in games sometimes where like more isn't necessarily better. The Unreal Engine has some amazing stuff, amazing features, but I personally think that it should serve a purpose and it should be used sparingly and intentionally. So when you see things like this, it's just like they turn all the effects up to like the maximum setting, and it kind of weirdly enough winds up looking soulless despite being so competent. Because I
Yeah.
think it
No.
just looks like someone flipped a switch. It looks like auto
Right.
generated, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like my thing with a lot of a lot of games that are being made with Unreal these days. This is my
Mm-hmm.
biggest issue with them, is that like
Yeah.
it feels like they all have the same
Yeah. Yeah.
shade to it. Like they all kind of have the same flavor.
There's a
Even
look.
like the High on Life game, like the Rick and Morty game.
Yeah.
Even like that game, that like I was like, this just looks like it got spit out of Unreal, which
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that comes down to like it's all like the same shaders and lighting packages and everything. But like when I see that, it's just it's like a turnoff. It's just like I don't want to play
Yep.
like a
You
pre-made.
you
Is
called
it
it,
Unreal?
dude.
Did you just look it
Yeah.
up?
Unreal Engine 4. That is the most, a UE4 game when you see
Yeah,
it. Like you just
you know
know,
when
you
you
just
see it.
know it, which is
It
crazy.
looks, and even like the Mario demo kind of looks like High on Life. It's got that same kind of like
Yeah. It all
like
looks like
lighting
it's,
and like rounded glossiness.
yeah, it
It's
looks like it's made of
super
plastic or made of clay or
yeah.
something like that. And like can be done in a creative way to make it look that way, but it just kind of like it's like the look that happens when you hit every button in Unreal Tournament. I wish Unreal Engine 4, where it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like you turn it all on, and it's got the Fortnite look. Everything looks like Fortnite.
Yeah, no, 100%. Um, and I it splits my feelings on Unreal and like the future of us probably getting more and more games that are like going to be
Oh
made
yeah,
with Unreal.
for
I
sure.
think it's like really cool that like the opportunities for more and more people to make games is going to
Hmm.
grow. But I do have like a slight feeling that as more and more developers use these pre-made engines, that it might be one of the reasons why we're seeing worse and worse optimization,
Mm.
because I think people are, when you use like a pre-made library like
Yeah.
Unreal, and my experience with this mostly relates to web development using like a pre-made library or mobile app development.
Hmm.
But when you do that, right, like the it's much more difficult to like make certain changes when you're using pre-made libraries than it would be as if you like had written the thing from scratch,
Hmm.
because then you understand every aspect of what was written and how changes you make um affect other changes in your code. And I'm sure you've experienced this as well as being a developer.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. I think that's something that we see in not just game development, not just web development, but like honestly software development in general. And overall, it is a good thing, like you said. I think because the more accessible things are, you get more stuff, which is cool. More people can
Yeah.
get their fingers in the pie, so to speak. I don't know why I've got that on my mind tonight. I'll say it again, I'm sure, before this episode's over.
We're ending the episode with fingers in the pie. Truly
Um,
horrifying.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like you look back in time, and when people were making earlier games in the 90s, 2000s, and stuff like that, like everybody kind of like knew the languages that were really on the metal, basically, of the console. And you could do some incredible optimization with that, but it was also really hard. And you had far less
Yeah.
people. You only really had like
Yeah.
true dyed in the wool nerds and like computer scientists, bless up, who are like working on it, because like you needed to know that sort of stuff. And now it's more like I think these kinds of frameworks allow more artistic people to get involved in a technical realm that they might not be able to otherwise, which is really cool. I think you get new perspectives, but like you said, you lose a lot of that optimization. I think that it's a big part of so much of what we're seeing, like applications on computers, on phones, games. Like these sorts of things are great for creating more stuff, but it's easier to do and easier to make mistakes. So we do see a lot of that, like that optimization going out the window.
Right. And I think like when we see games from like a dev team of like 3 to 10 people pump out like an indie game that's getting a lot of press, right? But then maybe it doesn't run very well on like the Series S or something, or the Switch. It's like,
Yeah.
I think people should be more mindful that like it there's a good chance that it was made in Unreal 4 or Unreal 5, and it's like,
Or Unity.
oh god, or Unity.
Everybody's favorite.
But like I think I see things of like, oh, like there's no excuse that like Halo can run at 60 on that Series S, but this like indie game has like a lot of trouble. I've seen that a lot on the internet. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like well, you have to be mindful, like, a team of 3 to 10, like they don't have the same resources as a team like Microsoft, right? Or a team like
Yeah,
Epic,
yeah.
who, I mean, they wrote Unreal, so that's a little different. But
Yeah, they've got the
but
secret
like then a
sauce.
bigger team who's working on a game in Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a smaller team and they have less resources to really navigate a pre-made library like that, it's going to be much more difficult for them to optimize.
Yeah, yeah.
But I wonder how much of that is also impacting like big AAA games as well. I actually think that's kind of
Yeah.
a separate issue.
Yeah. It's another interesting thing about like engines that are kind of, one size fits all that way, with the more popular the bigger ones get. Like certain things are just aspects of the engine are built for, certain consoles or platforms in mind. Like a big issue with Unreal, I think it's Unreal Engine 4. I'm pretty sure it is, because we haven't seen that much or anything with 5 yet. Is, things are generally built for consoles, and Unreal Engine is great for that. It's really good for console development. Um, but the problem is on consoles, you can ship all the shaders with the software, and the shaders are just like the very computationally intensive algorithms that essentially have to run to render certain things. When you can ship it with the file on a console, like it works on every platform the same. But the problem is like Unreal Engine 4 games on PC tend to have a ton of issues like that. Like there's a lot of stutter because it has to like render those sorts of things on their own. They're like, it doesn't play nice with different hardware configurations. It's like the issue you see with like, oh, everybody's going to use like this one engine. it's not necessarily one size fits all. There's different things that are going to work better on it than others. So we'll see, man.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out. I know
No,
that
I mean,
there's, yeah,
like
yeah,
we said, I think it's a different issue. I mean, I agree totally with what you're saying. Like, and I think at the end of the day, for smaller teams especially, like, it's gonna like we're gonna get more avenues, more games developed with the engine. But like, I think we're gonna see. I think it's gonna be a struggle for a while until people really get their hands on how to navigate these pre-made libraries really, really well, and we
yeah,
see like
yeah.
more and more people become experts in that,
Hmm.
and they know the pitfalls and how to like how to navigate the optimization for different edge cases and different platforms.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that actually like leads really well into like into something that is affecting everybody in gaming,
Oh boy.
but mostly PC players. What do you think? If I name these games to you, tell me if you can name a common thread. I'll do a little word association. I'm gonna spit out some games, and by the time when I'm done naming all of them, tell me what they make you think of.
Hmm.
These are all 2023 games: Wild Hearts, Wolong, The Last of Us Part One, Jedi Survivor. What do you think the common thread between those games are?
They're good and they are broken as hell on PC.
They're all busted PC ports.
Absolutely busted. These are broken products
Broken products being released honestly before they're finished. Here's a little
at full
article from
price, baby.
at full price. Here's a little article from PC Gamer. PC gamers are getting really, really fed up with one shitty port after another. Um, Star Wars Jedi Survivor sits at mixed reviews on Steam with rampant stutter and bizarrely low CPU and GPU utilization being the major culprit. Redfall is right on its heels, running better than it was pre-release, but still in rough shape. In April, The Last of Us Part 1 arrived broken as hell. In March, Wolong Fallen Dynasty arrived in a similarly woeful state to Wild Hearts, another action game from developer Koei Tecmo. Is that right?
Koei Tecmo.
Koei Tecmo. Every few weeks, there's another high-profile disappointment. It sucks both for players and for the developers who have to scramble to rush out patches just after release. Publishers like EA can continue writing post-launch apologies. Oh my god, it's so funny too. The post-launch apologies are like,
Oh, it's becoming
you
an
just
art form.
keep seeing the
It's
square,
the
the
same.
square post
The
on
dark
Twitter
square, yeah.
that's 10 paragraphs long. Oh my god, stop! We don't want the post-launch apologies. We want products that are being launched like complete and ready to be shipped.
Complete. All we ask for is completeness.
But without more transparency, more realistic deadlines, or a significant change to how PC game compatibility and performance are tested, this problem isn't going away. Um, yeah, I mean, like this is more of an opinionated article, but I mean, I agree with it, right? And like,
Yeah.
I'm newer to PC gaming. You've been PC gaming for a long time.
Yeah, most of my life.
But I mean, like, what's your thoughts? Like, we're on a big string here. We're on a long
Yeah.
string of big AAA games coming out one after another, just not ready to be shipped. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is like, we're talking about PC, but Jedi Survivor was even busted on consoles.
Yeah.
So not only are we getting like bad PC ports, we're just straight up getting games that aren't finished. They're
Mm-hmm.
just not ready. And the publishers are like, fuck it, send it, we'll patch it, we'll fix it. They're saying it's the game version of we'll fix it in post.
Yeah, literally, we will literally fix the game after it has come out. Like the gamers, consumers, players, whatever you want to call us, like we've become
Beta
unpaid
testers.
beta testers and QA testers. Not only are we unpaid, we're actually paying them for the privilege to do it, which is
Yeah.
like kind of wild.
We're begging.
And we're begging for it.
Begging
we
for
keep paying. We keep paying more than ever. In fact, it really is crazy. Like I've been, I've owned pretty much every damn console and system that's come out since the '90s. But like, so I'm a PC gamer and I'm a console gamer. And one of the expectations with PC gaming is that there are quirks. There are things you're going to have to do to get things running or get them perfect. Like that's always been part of it. We know that, But this is like a whole nother level where when the first game came out, like the first couple of games that were like kind of busted in the last like year or two on PC, it was like, oh, that sucks, but they'll patch it eventually. And then like without even realizing it, like it became a trend. And it's like, legitimately almost every single big release has launched in such a busted ass state that it's like I now expect them to be broken. It's like,
Yeah, right.
which is crazy to me. Like, you should know that if a game is being, and this is the thing, people always say like, oh, but it's so hard to do, they'll fix it over time. And like, yeah, it's hard to make games, and they
Right.
probably will, but you are selling a product to someone. It's like selling a bicycle to someone and the front wheel doesn't work. You
And
paid
they're like,
money
"I'll
for it.
bring it back in a week and we'll fix it," but you still have to pay right now,
Yeah,
full
yeah, exactly.
price.
It's like we might fix the wheel over time, but like until then you can like ride it around on a flat busted wheel, that kind of thing. It's
You
like you
can do
paid
a
for it.
wheelie. You
You
can
can do a sick wheelie.
you can do a
But
sick wheelie, and if you can get around that way, that's great. It's an inconvenience to you, but like, is what it is. That's the
yeah, you gotta
product.
pay for the front wheel DLC to get it back.
Literally.
Yeah,
But
it's like,
but
yeah, it's
no,
nuts. It's
it's
it's really
crazy,
nuts.
and it's not like, for anyone who's listening who doesn't like buy games regularly, games are $70. Like all
Yeah,
of these games listed, maybe not all of them, but like
new big budget games. Yeah.
most new big budget AAA games are $70. That's a lot. That's
Hmm.
a lot of money for one person to spend. And after
Yeah.
tax and everything, you're pushing like 80-85 bucks.
Hmm.
And have someone spend that, and then for the game to not be functioning, frame drops to like the teens,
Hmm.
teens to 20s, like screen tearing. Dude, I played Jedi Survivor. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I had a really good time. I did like, it was like what was the last game you were addicted to? Because this was definitely one for me. Because was it
Oh
Ragnarok
gosh.
for you?
Probably, yeah. In terms of new releases, probably, yeah. I was
Ragnarok.
I was went hard on it.
Yeah, Ragnarok was one for me. This is another one. I think I started on Thursday. Or Friday, Thursday or Friday, and I
Hmm.
finished it yesterday, which is Tuesday, and like it was like 30. I put like 30 hours into it. It was like,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
was like while I was like working and stuff. Like
yeah, yeah.
it was like if I wasn't working, I was playing it. It was a really good experience. I loved it, but like and the performance did smooth out over as the game went on. But like
Hmm.
to even see screen tearing and like 15 FPS on a console,
Hmm.
that's so like, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other games that have done it, that's happened to. None that I've played. Like
Hmm.
I was really shocked when the first boss fight, the FPS dips down to like 15 in like certain like cinematic moments, and
Hmm.
I was like, wow, this is actually crazy. This is like really
Yeah. Like,
distracting.
this doesn't feel
This
good.
doesn't feel good, and it's like I'm on a PS5, I'm on a console. It's like you're not even like you don't have to worry about like all of
Yeah.
the edge cases that come with PC development, or optimizing for different PC rigs
Yep.
and
You have
everyone's
one
mix
dev
match
kit.
processors and RAM and CPU capabilities or GPU capabilities. It's one system. It's one system you develop. You know what I mean? It's so strange. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And EA came out almost immediately and was just like, "Yeah, don't worry. We'll send you guys patches as a treat."
Yeah, you guys, out of the kindness of our hearts, we'll put out some free patches for you to improve the experience. This is my favorite thing. They always say some users are reporting blah blah blah. They always say some users, and it's like, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot
It's
of
not just
people.
some. It's like, I mean, especially on a console, like whether you have an issue with it or not, whether it bothers you, that's subjective. But like when a piece of software does not work right on a set piece of hardware, like that's an objective fact, like
Right, right,
whether it
right.
bothers you or not, it's like it's not some users that are having performance problems and crashing and stuff. It's like it is fundamentally pretty much everybody.
It's not, oh, some users with a 2060 Ryzen 5 combo are experience. No, it's everyone on the PS5 is seeing the exact same shit.
Yeah, yeah,
What are you talking about?
yeah. It's
And
it's
and
crazy.
that so I mean, we're specifically talking about like broken PC ports, and while we are seeing the console problems as well, we were just
Hmm.
talking about like pitfalls and optimization. Like I think there's like a few reasons like as to why this might be happening, like why we're
Hmm.
getting games that aren't really complete.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, I mean, for Jedi Survivor specifically, the biggest thing I can think of is that they were just really desperately trying to beat Zelda. That's
Mm,
like the biggest thing I can think of.
yeah,
Like if they didn't get this game out before Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they were effed, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I mean in that sense, like I don't blame them,
Hmm.
but like the consumer can't be like suffering at the cost of like the developers not having a good handle on their projects.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Like it's such a multifaceted thing, and I think we're going to see it like keep happening, and hopefully, and we'll see it change. I think like the industry is shifting so much right now. Like games are becoming so big, so expensive to make, and so time consuming that like companies are setting these deadlines. They're saying like this is when the game, and then there's financial reasons for that. There's a million different things. Like this is when the game is going to come out, and hell or high water, like they'll usually try and keep it to that, whether the game is finished or not. And that sucks for starters for a lot of reasons. But it's like I can't help but think of things from like an artistic standpoint, where it's like if I were painting a picture, if I were making a project, like I'd want it to be done. I would want it to feel like it's really the finished product. And I feel like games in a lot of ways used to be that way. There was less overhead in terms of release windows. And then that kind of became more of a thing in like the, early mid 2000s. And now it's become like the big thing. It's all about setting these dates for it. And like a game like Jedi Survivor, while yes, it's feature complete, from a software perspective, like it's not finished. They are actively finishing the game right now. They're finishing the product, finishing the software, and we see this happening more and more. And it's like if it's the dates, it's these release dates, these windows that they're just being so forced to crunch, and it's not like they're goofing off. Like these people are,
Right.
are
No, they're
generally being
working really hard.
crunched. They are working
Yeah.
insanely hard. It is an issue
Right.
of like publishers, of management, of just setting unrealistic deadlines and like forcing people to work insane hours to meet them and continuing to push them past that. It's like it's
Yeah.
unsustainable. I think it's really unsustainable.
I think that's a really, really good point, and I think that's like something that's really important for people to understand is that like this is really not, unless the developer is also the publisher. This is really not a developer's problem. This is really not
Hmm.
like at fault of the developer. Like I can't put any much blame on them. I'm sure, like I'm sure certain aspects of it, like go back to them, but like the publishers are the real business decision makers. Like they're the ones who are deciding when these things are going out and forcing developers into these timelines. So like,
Hmm.
at that point you have to put the blame on them in that capacity.
Yeah, it's tricky too because like most of these games, it's like the teams are really big too. Like these big companies, these big publishers. Like there's so many people who are a lot of fingers in the pie. Everybody is getting like so. There's so many developers. It's like you can't necessarily. It's when a game like this comes out, like Jedi Survivor, I mean, I would have to look at the credits, but I'm sure like hundreds of people worked on this game. And it's like, no one team has any real control over all this stuff. It's kind of like a ship with all these different moving parts. And it's like, maybe this team was a little slower than this team at something. Like this team was more technically adept at this other feature. Like different parts of the game are being made by people who probably never talk to each other. Like they're not in the same office. Might not even be in the same country. And like, you're trying to fit all of these things together within these like incredibly tight time windows, and it's like it's nuts. Like no
Yeah.
wonder we're running into issues like this. It's like it's very hard to gone are the days of people like John Carmack and John Romero like starting id Software and like making a game in their garage. I mean, people can still do that with the engines
Yeah.
and stuff. Indie teams are small, but like that sort of thing, like creating the big blockbuster game with an incredibly small team is, I don't know. I don't think it's really going to happen in the industry the way it is right now.
Well, I mean, there are like certain examples of like games coming out on time, expected, and like uh, as a finished
True.
product. Like I think
It does happen. It's not, to doom and gloom it. Yeah. It's like not everything
yeah,
is bad. It's just these, we're seeing big name releases, but
it's definitely a majority, right? It's definitely a majority of games, and on like some of the most like anticipated titles. Um, but like Ragnarok came out, that ran pretty great, right? Like
the,
Ragnarok was a very impressive piece of software.
really phenomenal
Um,
software.
yeah, that was awesome. And then like I revere I not I praise this man. He is incredible. Yoshi P over at Final Fantasy, like he has such a solid grip on his squad.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like he knows exactly how to run a game development team and like keep everything as like
Hmm.
a really tight ship. He
Yeah.
took one of the worst one of the worst MMOs ever and rebounded it into like one of the probably the second most successful ever to WoW. I think at one point it even had
Yeah.
like more of the like
Yeah.
industry share.
There are, like you said, there are companies like this. Another one is I believe I think it's Insomniac. They are really consistent. I want to get the name right. I'm pretty sure it's Insomniac. They've actually been really consistent with their releases, and they've also been, I think this is like backed up by a lot of sources, like they've avoided crunch culture. They've like kept their deadlines like tight but doable. Like the management is really solid, and it's like these sorts of things are doable. I think it's like it's such a weird industry, you know. It's like a passion industry that has always had high turnover, and like I think companies for decades now have kind of been able to take advantage of their
Yeah.
employees, and
I
it's like we're seeing the, you know, the result of that.
I think I see what you're saying. I just did a quick search. I see like developers in Insomniac say there were no crunch on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Yeah.
So like they have a
um
history of this. And
yeah,
that
like,
and
and they've
that game
consistently
was
released things.
awesome. Ratchet
Hmm.
and Clank Rift Apart was really great.
Yeah, a really really good game. They did Spider-Man. I mean, look at their recent releases. You know, they had Marvel Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and now they're working on Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. And like that's 2018, 2020, 2021, 2023, like
Yeah,
consistent
Spider-Man 2
releases
is
that
like
are,
coming out like in like September, I think
yeah,
August or September.
and they're really good games. They're very competently made. They're very technically sound, like
Yeah.
finished products. And again, like I don't work there. I don't know what the culture is, but from what I've read, people who work there love working there because like they seem to respect the time and deadlines of their employees and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And well, actually I was going to say like shout out to Sony for having a lot of like completed products, but they were responsible for The Last of Us Part 1 PC port.
Yes, they were.
Um which we
That
looked
was
into a little. The
insane.
studio they used to port it was like had like a notoriously bad
Iron
track.
Galaxy, yeah.
Iron Galaxy, like they have like a bad track record on ports. So we were like, why did they even use this company? But like
Yeah.
it has to be something contractual where they have like X
Cost
amount of
or
ports with them or something that like are
yeah.
required to fulfill a contract before they can release them. Because
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would give what was their other big one? Was like an Uncharted port or something that was like
They
horrendous.
did. Their most famous one is Arkham Knight, Batman
Arkham
Arkham
Knight.
Knight, the
That was it.
PC
That was
version
it.
that was like that is like the
The
holy
gold
grail.
standard
That's
of
the gold
tragedy on
standard
PC ports. Yeah.
for trash PC port. Like I bought it and I refunded it from like
Wow.
a website that normally doesn't give refunds. They made an exception for that
Oh,
game because
that's
it
why
was
you
so
don't like
broken.
Arkham Knight.
Yeah, I'm still pissed about it.
I love that game. It's so good.
Arkham Knight PC.
But yeah, no,
That
it's
was
really interesting. I think a lot of things go into it for like why the PC ports are so busted these days. Like I think publishers are like increasingly giving their developers less time to finish these things.
Mhm.
Which is like a big shame. And like obviously I don't want crunch, but I obviously don't want crunch, and I really no but. I don't want crunch, and I want products to be completed. Like if you have to delay a game, delay the game.
Yeah.
And I also like this is for everyone here who attacks publishers on Twitter when a delay is announced, or devs on Twitter when a delay is announced. Let's stop doing that, because now look at the flip side. Like we're pressuring publishers and devs to not delay games, or we're so mad when it happens. But like, would you rather have it delayed, or would you rather have it complete?
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like I'll take the delay any day, dude. I have been writing for Metroid Prime 4 for like 10 years, okay?
We've been
I
waiting for like
for
15 years
so
at this point.
long, and dude, in 3 or 4 years ago, like the game was already announced. It was like in full development. 3 or 4 years ago, Nintendo goes, "Guys, we haven't announced it on Metroid Prime 4." Everyone was like, "Ooh," and they go, "We restarted development entirely." And it's like, what?
They
But
said
like,
what we had was bad and we are not
yeah.
gonna keep working on it. We're starting
And
over.
I was like, and honestly, I was initially like shocked, but then I was like, you know what? I'm glad they recognize that, because
Yeah,
if Metroid Prime 4 came out and it sucked, that would be really disappointing
it'd
after
be
like this much
sad.
wait.
Yeah, it would be really sad.
And then Nintendo, like, they saw what they were making and they're like, this is shit.
This sucks.
This
This is not
sucks.
good. Yeah, like I'm not
I'll take that.
owed
I'll take that any
anything.
day.
Yeah, I would too. I'd rather a game not come out, honestly, than to have a bad version of it come out. Like I love games. I love these franchises. I of course I want to get more of everything I love, but like, at the end of the day, I'm not owed anything by these people. Like
Right.
if you've got something great to show me, to give me, like, bring it on. I can't wait. But it's like you don't have to. You don't
Right.
have to. If
You
it
don't.
sucks, you don't have
You
to
don't have
release
to
it.
do it.
You don't have to
Please
do it.
don't
It's
do
okay.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. But another game that was kind of in that list, but we haven't talked about too much, which released this week, is Redfall.
Oh boy, yeah,
Uh,
Microsoft's magnum opus.
Redfall is a bloodless imitation of Arkane's best work. I want to share a different one here because I
Yeah,
think there's
there's a
a
lot
more
to show
interesting
here.
headline. Redfall is currently Arkane's lowest rated game ever. So Redfall came out this week onto Game Pass and for sale.
Hmm.
Um, it's finally here, although the reception is anything but what developer Arkane Studios is probably hoping for. It was looking pretty grim even before the game launched. The lack of performance mode on release. Oh yeah, it launched with only 30 FPS, which is really
Hmm.
interesting. And its insistence on using de novo DRM despite fan backlash gave the title a mountain to climb. Unfortunately, it seems like the game's quality isn't enough to keep those pre-launch controversies under the rug, as Redfall is currently Arkane's worst rated game ever, and it's more likely going to stay that way.
Mm.
Um, so this is really really wild. This is kind of a sad moment. This is kind of a
Yeah.
sad moment because Arcane Studios is one of those studios to me that really, like, their top hits, I've only played Dishonored 2 and Deathloop.
Hmm.
Um but like those games are so 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 good that like every time Arcane puts out a game, it's like a really special moment. Like
Yeah.
it's a kind of a big deal
Hmm.
because they have such a unique style, and they have such a specific type of gameplay that when you get an Arcane game that it's not really going to feel like anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love that about them. But everything we saw from Redfall, everyone saw like the IGN gameplay last month or 2 months ago, which was like
Hmm.
shockingly bad. Like it just
Yeah.
looked so bland and so generic. And everyone was like, what is this Arcane? Like everyone was confused. Everyone was, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was confusing.
I
And
think
now
it's
the
made by a
game's
different
here,
company.
it's out. It's gotten a lot of like I've seen a lot of scores at like 4 out of 10, 6 out of 10, like very, very low scores. It's launched buggy. There's a lot of bugs, a lot of things that don't make sense. Things don't work in the game. The AI is apparently pretty bad. And it, it it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting case because I so desperately want to see like the Arcane timeline, or the timeline of Redfall, its
Yeah,
development,
yeah.
like how it fit into the Microsoft Bethesda merger. It kind of leaked that like maybe Arcane was trying to do like a live service game, and then Microsoft might have like put the squash on that. I saw some rumors online, like super super grain of salt because they were just like comments, but like that what is it, like ZeniMax or something that owns
Cinemax,
Arcane?
yeah. Hmm.
They were like, Microsoft basically, when they acquired ZeniMax and Arcane, were just like, just get this out. Like, we
Hmm.
don't actually really care about this game that much. Like, just get this out. Um, and apparently they might have Arcane be working on something much bigger and better,
Mm.
which is also very interesting. And I hope that's the
Interesting.
case on this in
Yeah.
this scenario. I feel like that's the best case scenario. And I
Yeah.
hope that's what it is. Because I played Deathloop last year. It was like the first game I played when I built my PC. It was awesome. It was such a cool experience. Like it was like the whole game is like one giant puzzle.
Hmm.
I recently played Link's Awakening, and like it actually made me think of Deathloop, because I was just like, Deathloop and Link's Awakening are just like, the whole game is one giant puzzle that you have to crack.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's so cool. Like in that, I think games like that with that kind of spin are like, they're just so unique. Arkane in Dishonored, like they created like such a cool combat system with the powers and the way you can combine them. I
Hmm.
remember the developer for Dishonored 2 even said, like, when we were playtesting this thing, the playtesters were actually like combining the powers in ways that we didn't even know were possible.
Mm.
So to see like a developer go from that level of creativity and like innovation to a very bland co-op looter shooter is like a really big shock and surprise to me.
Yeah,
And I don't understand what happened, unless it truly is Microsoft being like, we want you working on like some really awesome IP. Get
mm.
this thing out the door. Like, we don't really care that much. But it's
Yeah.
not great timing for Microsoft. I feel like Microsoft is like one L after another right now. And they desperately need a W. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole like Arkane and Redfall thing? I'm really curious to hear.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I love arcane stuff. Dishonored is one of my favorite games of all time. They are such an interesting company in that they've produced things in like the immersive sim genre, which is like something that was big in the on the PC world in the late 90s ish, where it's just like you're a character in an environment, usually mission or point A to point B kind of thing, and like you have freedom over how you approach it and how you accomplish that mission and that task. And that's something we don't see too often these days, with like bigger and bigger budgets and bigger worlds and stuff. And like their games have really pretty consistently been that way. Dishonored is like that. Prey is like that. Deathloop is like that, and like the puzzle kind of do it over and over kind of way.
Yep.
And it's so weird. This to me, and studios can try new things, like they should try new things. But it just feels so uncharacteristic for them. It feels like it's missing so many of the things
Mm-hmm.
that the studio has been known for, and it's
Right.
like I am
Like they
so
like they like dismiss their own design properties,
yeah, their own like philosophies and the way that
fundamental
they've
design
approached
philosophies.
things. Yeah, they're fundamentals, and like it's just so strange. I really don't get it. It's like, well, the thing too is like we forget now because again, budgets are so big. Like every big release feels like so much is riding on it. But like studios can have put out stinkers in the past. Like
Yeah.
it's possible for someone to just make a bad game. Even if their other games have been great. It's just so visible right now from them
Yeah.
because of the Microsoft deal, branding, like what this is kind of things that were riding on this. Like everybody was watching it, even people who don't play Arkane's games. Like people were watching this. So
Yeah.
like them in any other time in history releasing like kind of a mediocre like online shooter game would be like, well, that sucks. Like I wonder why they did that. But like in this, it feels like such a big budget swing and a miss that is so
Yeah.
confusing to me. Like I wonder if they had been, this was an idea that they had been cooking up for a while and they were working on it. And somewhere along the way, it just wasn't working. Something
Yeah.
wasn't clicking for them.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the deal, like you said, they made Bethesda, Microsoft, all the people involved might have been like, this IP, this product is part of the deal.
Yeah.
You have it in the works. Regardless of what happens, we're purchasing you so that like it will come out during this time period. And it got delayed, actually, I think once or twice.
Yeah.
Like it's going to come out. It's going to have certain these aspects. It'll be on our subscription service, like all these kinds of
Yep.
things, and then you'll move on to the next thing, like you said. And it's like we were saying earlier, like if a game isn't finished, like either delaying it or pushing it back, or if something just isn't working and it isn't good, like can it, try something new, share those assets with the other teams at the company. Like it's just so weird that something like this that clearly seems to have so many things that just don't feel right. How did it come out in this state? Like it needed more time, more play testers, more, I don't know, just a shift in direction. But it seems like they weren't given that, or they didn't want it, or it's so weird. It's just so strange. It's uncharacteristic for them, and I hope isn't like a worrying sign for, I don't know, other franchises and studios that get acquired in the future by other companies.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And I that's why I said like I'm just so curious about the timeline, and like I wonder if one day we'll get more information on it. Like one of those like
Yeah,
classic like, this is what
Jason
happened with this
Schreier
game. Yeah,
tell-alls.
this
Yeah,
is the story of the the rise in the rise in Redfall. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I wanted to so desperately know what happened. Like, it almost feels like, um, it almost feels like something that Arkane themselves would have like looked at, even though it was like really far into development and like scrapped.
Yeah, yeah,
And I wonder if like they even thought about that, and Microsoft is like, no, we're just gonna put it on Game Pass. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like the images of the shop leaked, but like that doesn't mean much to me because that was before the Microsoft merger. These images of this MTX shop leaked for this
The
game,
UI, yeah.
but like that doesn't mean much to me because like, yeah, I mean, Arkane could have like conceptually been thinking about, you know, is this something we can do? Like, like it doesn't mean that we're gonna do it. It
Hmm.
it's just they can still be like toying with the ideas of like what a game is and making UIs just to see how they work. They could have just even been mock-ups. You know what I mean? Like it might not even have been in game.
Hmm.
But like it's just very strange. Something just feels very off about it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it just feels so not Arcane in general that it's like it's just kind of shocking.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I hope they come out with something after this that's like really really good. It has the vibe of just like Microsoft just being like, screw it, throw it on
Just get
Game
it out.
Pass,
Just
on to
get
the
it
next
out.
one.
Yeah. Throw it on Game Pass.
It's
Like,
just weird, man. It's just strange. It's just strange.
yeah.
It's kind of sad. It really does make me sad. It
Yeah, me too. I
does.
mean, I want everything to be good. I'm never rooting for companies to struggle to put out a good product. Like, I love Arcane. I even like the idea behind it. Like, a
Mhm.
vampire,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of Salem's Lot, like,
It's exciting. It's
Dishonored.
cool.
Like, it's really cool. And it's
Looter
just
shooter
the
though is so exhausting to me now.
the genre and the tone just feels so like misplaced. It's just
Yeah.
bizarre. It feels like someone generated it in a boardroom full of AIs. Like,
Yep.
what's like the most
The
sellable thing
like
right now?
and Redfall, the way the gameplay looks to me, almost like it almost reminds me more of like Back for Blood than anything, with like these really like flat open landscapes that you just kind of go like building to
Yeah,
building, like really bland and like just not engaging at all. Like,
yeah, and like the quirky kind of millennial humor. I'm a millennial. I don't think it's particularly
yeah,
funny,
we
but
suck.
that tone, like the character, the humor. It's like, I don't know. It just feels so weird. It feels like very corporate.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just
people can
not.
smell that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, we just actually mentioned a couple times that like the ballooning cost of games,
yeah.
which is something that actually it's something that came out actually during the CMA uh blocking the Microsoft Activision merger. It's part of the document that we did not read this part of the document, but it's in there. Some really interesting numbers. I'm actually going to read a lot of this article. It's pretty short, but I think this article is like really really interesting. And some other numbers came out around the sales of video game units, like the
Hmm.
actual sales numbers for the numbers of like individual software, like the individual games, discs, and digital sales, under the $70 price tag, which is like becoming the norm, which is quickly becoming the 100% norm.
Yeah.
But here we go. Blockbuster game development costs are out of control. And the article reads: the production of big budget games has felt unsustainable for a while now, and all evidence points to the major blockbusters only getting more expensive in the years to come. Testimony in the regulatory fight over Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard shows that game publishers are spending more than ever to make new entries in their biggest franchises, from Call of Duty to Grand Theft Auto 6. One publishers even claims to have spent over $1 billion on a recent release when both production and marketing costs are taken into account. The recent decision by the UK's Competition and Markets Authority to block Microsoft merger company by a 418-page report outlining its research and reasoning, including a section devoted to ever-rising game development cost. It cites research by market analysts from IDG projecting blockbuster game budgets would grow from an average of 50 to 150 million last console generation to over 200 million for games released in the next couple of years. Back in 2014, it was closer to 60 million. The budgets were closer to 60 million. The CMA, referencing the report, writes, also the report says that some AAA franchises like Call of Duty have development budgets already exceeding $300 million, and the next GTA and other future tentpoles are expected to hit $250 million or higher. Activision is also quoted in this report saying that reference to Call of Duty, we have to make so much content for Call of Duty that we can't even lean on one lead studio anymore. Now we need almost 1.5 lead studios to each annual Call of Duty. That kind of bandwidth pressure is forcing us to use outsourcers more and more. I don't see that change anytime soon. I want to keep reading more, but I think that's a good stopping point because that like leads me into some thoughts, and I'll bring this back up in a little bit. But like, there's this like, first of all, the numbers that were kind of thrown out for Call of Duty and GTA. Actually, I don't think like those costs are that insane for the something at the scale of GTA. I kind of when I read 250, that's actually exactly where I thought it would have been.
Yeah.
Like it, yeah. GTA 6 is going to be a massive game that will most likely innovate on like open world interaction in some way.
Yeah.
It's going to be insane, crazy, big, ambitious project. And it's going to have a slew of online features, and it's going to be a platform that we're going to like have for probably 10 to 15 years. It's going to be an insane project. So the fact that like it's 250 mil, like, yeah, that's a lot of money, but Rockstar's going to make that back tenfold. They're going to make so much money on this, if not more.
They've made $1 billion off of GTA 5. I think more actually at this point.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So like that sounded right to me. And the fact that project was the 250 million, but some unnamed developer spent $1 billion on something else, which we'll go into later. It's actually like 600 million on the development and 500 million on the marketing. But even still, I like want to know what game that was, because I'm
so curious. Yeah,
who's making $1 billion game? That's
Bungie,
not COD
Destiny 2. I know they spent a lot on advertising for the original Destiny and a lot of development time, but
$1 billion, dude. That's $1 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot, man. I can't think of what game that would be.
Yeah.
But it's so wild to me. And my last thought that chunk of the article we just read is, and this is something we've actually talked about in the past, but like this drives me up a wall. And this statement actually really angered me, where it says that Activision is also quoting in this report saying that with reference to Call of Duty, we have to make so much content for Call of Duty that we can't even lean on one lead studio anymore. Now we need almost 1.5 lead studios for each annual Call of Duty. Like, you don't have to make that much content, man. No one's asking you to do that. It's really infuriating that like you're saying we are expected to do this and not being honest about we're doing this because we make a shit ton of money and people will eat up the content. Like, Call of Duty has gotten to a point where like you kind of can just expect Call of Duty content to be bad, which is why when like Modern Warfare in 2019 came out and was like really good, it was like the biggest one in years because it was such an enjoyable title and it was of quality. And then that introduced Warzone, and then Warzone introduced them bringing on different lead studios to work on that project. And then what happened in Warzone? It became a spaghetti code, disgusting mess that barely worked. Like, it was so bad, riddled with cheating. The UI didn't work properly. The game started to run like crap. Like, it was a mismatch of different developers coming in every year, taking control of that project, adding their own code to it, and just making it like unsustainable. And we keep going back to Halo Infinite, but Halo Infinite was made entirely with like contractors. And I think the more like people, the more cooks in the kitchen you have working on a game, the messier the development of that game is going to become, and the harder it is going to become to like keep it clean and
to
scalable.
rein it in. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. What are your thoughts on like what we just read?
It's insane. I think the key sentence to me is what you said. Like we have to make so much content for the game now. Like that to me sums it up so much that everything, even these big single player game, fun single player in quotes, because that's not even really the core of it anymore for a lot of these big franchises. Is like you said about Grand Theft Auto. It's not just a game; it's like a platform. And I think so many companies are chasing that with the service game, where it's like you're releasing something that will be supported and so much content will be coming out for it for years and years and years, theoretically. And it's like, that's just insane to me, saying like, well, we have to make so much content that we have to have like 5 studios. They'll have to work like 80 to 100 hours a week. They got to be, can't see their families. Like we have to do this. We have to make this
The consumer
content.
is
It's got to
demanding
come
us
out.
to make content for them to us to sell to them.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, there's gamers who will get mad if there isn't consistent updates. Like I get it, that happens sometimes, but it's like I think the real people pushing it are the shareholders, the people who are in charge
Yes.
of these things. It's becoming more and more of a really a I mean, games have always been products, it's entertainment, but it's like they're more product than ever before, I feel like, in the AAA space. And that's why these
Mm-hmm.
budgets are getting insane, is like
Yeah.
they know that like there's that tipping point where like if you invest enough, the returns will be so monumental that like it's worth it. But the
Right.
problem is like that's a treadmill that you can keep walking on forever. Like the mountain will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And these sorts of things are dripping down to the AA games, the indie games as well, which is that's more what I worry about. Like, Ubisoft, Rockstar, they'll always make these big games. That's just their modus operandi. But like the smaller games that now feel like, oh, they have to have like a battle pass, they have to have some kind of consistent revenue source. And
They have to
like
be open world.
they have to be open world, they have to chase trends. And it's like, everybody wants to make money, and I hope that every developer does make money, but it's just, I don't know, man. Like when it impacts the art and just the longevity of something, the what's the word? Like the not stability, the foundation. Do you know what I mean?
Like
There's
the
a
like the identity of like the IP.
Yeah, the integrity. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. The integrity of something is just, it's crazy.
Right. Like when
Yeah,
when when 343 announced that Infinite was going to be open world, everybody was like, "Why?" Nobody
yeah,
nobody wanted that.
yeah. Halo's
Nobody
a
asked for that. And nobody needed it. Like there are people
yeah,
that love the open world aspect of Halo Infinite. It's fine. It's there. And like you get locked out of it halfway through the game. And like the back half of the game is just straight linear, which like just shows how like the fact that you get locked out of the open world in Halo shows how fucking unnecessary it was.
yeah, yeah,
Because even the developers were like, well, the structure of this doesn't make sense in open world. Now you're just locked into a linear playthrough of mission after mission, which is
yeah,
what Halo is. It's exactly what
yeah.
you're saying. It's the integrity of that IP.
hmm
We
I
don't.
think there should be more games with smaller budgets where people are paid more to work less, and I think we would all be better off for it. Like honestly, just these projects are just getting so insane and so bloated. Like Halo is at its core series with great arena shooter multiplayer and really solid, very tightly designed linear campaigns. And yeah, you can branch out of that. Like I think most people would have loved to see something like, the Silent Cartographer from Halo 1, which was like a very big open mission, but still point A to point B. You just had a
Right.
choice of how to go about it, like the
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
immersive sim kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like that's cool. That's part of the identity. It's like you didn't need to make a big map and checklists and
Yep.
open world and have the multiplayer be a battle pass filled, like MTX thing. And it's like it just feels like, boardroom decisions
Like
impacting,
mandates.
yeah, mandates. It
Yeah.
feels
The
like
data
mandates more
says
than
this.
anything.
People are loving open world games.
Yeah,
Make it
yeah.
open world. Um, let me finish out this article because we're it's there's not much left, and I think these numbers are really interesting. So the regulators, being the CMA, the regulators then cite testimony from other publishers about their own hit franchises that reinforce this trend. While some of the range differ, they're all going up. One publisher said it spends 164 million on pre-launch development costs and 55 million on marketing. Another publisher said budgets range from 80 million to 350 million, with marketing costs up to 310 million for the biggest games. A third publisher reported costs between 110 to 350 million for recent games. A fourth publisher said budgets ranged from 90 million to 180 million, with marketing ranging from 50 million to 150 million. Its most expensive game cost 660 million to develop, with a marketing budget of 550 million. Ding, ding, ding. That's our $1 billion winner right there.
Insane.
The
That's
fourth
so much money.
unnamed fourth publisher. The CMA points to this evidence as it's unlikely another company could reasonably make a replacement for Call of Duty anytime soon. Another fucking great shout out from the
point,
CMA,
yeah.
who has like a shockingly good understanding of this landscape.
We love you, CMA.
But it also shows just how unsustainable big budget game development has gotten, with blockbusters like Suicide Squad and Starfield costing a ton and taking forever to come out. The pressure and risk associated with them succeeding or failing are greater than ever. It's a recipe for disaster, and has also has publishers continuing to retreat into their most trusted franchises. To retreat into their most trusted franchises. Ubisoft has been upfront about doubling down on Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. While nearly halfway through the current console generation, PlayStation fans are still waiting for Sony to take a swing on new IPs. Sean Layden, former chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios, predicted back in 2020 that the PS5 era would push this math to the breaking point, saying, quote, "I don't think in the next generation you can take those numbers and multiply them by 2 and expect the industry to continue to grow." He said at the time, some of the biggest game companies appear determined to try and do just that. Wild numbers, like super wild numbers, mind-blowingly expensive to make these games. Like everything we just said, like I think a lot of the decisions that are driving these costs seem to be chasing trends and trying to make service games that act more like platforms for updated content to be distributed to them. One of the big problems with that is that the content, like Activision is crying over so bad with Call of Duty, is that the fucking content they're making, it's like, oh, give us $30 and we'll give you more cosmetics to earn. Like that, there was something called like it actually just came out, $30 battle pass add-on. Like it had a very specific name, where they like made this big deal about, it's called the Black Cell bundle. Here, let me pull this up really quick. This is like the kind of new content that like Call of Duty is talking about. Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone 2 adding a $30 Black Cell DLC. Here's what you get. So the thing is that the DLC, it's actually just like mostly cosmetics. Like you get more battle, you get like you get like in-game perks, you get cosmetics. It's essentially a battle pass add-on. You get access to the full season 3 battle pass and 20 tier skips, 1100 COD points, 1400 COD points awarded through the battle pass, a Black Cell operator, which is essentially a skin, a tuned weapon blueprint, exclusive Black Cell sector within the battle pass serves as an alternative starting location, which is how like their weird fucking battle pass works. Immediate unlocking of adjacent battle pass sector. It's all battle pass. This isn't DLC. This isn't content. This is cosmetics. This is MTX straight up, and it's $30. And it's like people for me, like I don't need that. I don't think a lot of people need or want that kind of stuff. If reducing this kind of stuff means less crunch and less strain and less like budget cost, then like do it. Then do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can focus your efforts on like increasing the quality of the content, the actual playable content, and not the cosmetics.
Yeah, I think that part at the end of the article about PlayStation IPs and stuff, I think is so interesting, and that's something that even I hadn't even quite realized.
Yeah, me too. Actually, it is kind of true.
Yeah, like I miss so badly the era of games around like I would say probably like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, like 2000 to
GameCube is
2005.
like the best example. I know exactly what you're saying. You're talking about like innovation in gaming, the publishers swinging the bat at new things, trying like wild things with their IP.
Yeah. Making new ones, trying new things.
Whether it was good or bad, it was almost always interesting. The GameCube is the best example of that.
Yeah, like trying on new IPs. That's the thing that concerns me about these ballooned budgets and stuff. We see it in Hollywood as well right now. I wonder if we're headed towards some kind of bubble popping in general, like
Yeah.
with art, with creative things. Because like when something costs that much to make, and like there's the balancing act of the finances and the profits, like people won't take risks.
Right.
These big companies that can fund these things aren't going to take risks. And again, that's going to trickle down to smaller developers and ideas too, where like, I just worry that we won't see as many cool and creative new things. Like back in the day, you not to sound like an old man, but like, generally you would like,
Back in
make
my
a
millennial
game.
day.
Back in my day, we would make a game and it had all the content, like
it only
you would,
cost 60 billion. 60
like
million.
Developers would try to get everything they could into a game, because once it came out, that was it, and if there was an expansion pass, if there was something new that came after for it, it was because they had more ideas. They genuinely had ideas to create something. I feel like
actual content.
The problem with these service things is like you're putting not even like the cart before the horse. That's not the right expression, but like they're building for an audience that doesn't exist yet, or something like that, where it's like you're planning out additional content before you've even finished or released the main game. And it's like, I feel like when you're putting a schedule on releasing additional content, it's like, you can't be creative. You don't have room to be creative. You can't, if a developer has 3 months to finish, some new map and guns for Call of Duty, like, what the hell are they going to do in 3 months? You know what I mean? Like, you can't say like, oh, we've got a great idea, we're going to take a year and a half or 2 years to build it, and it's going to be awesome. Like, you're on the clock, man. Like someone's money is burning right now, and it's insane. I just feel like you can't when a game is launching with a battle pass and the anticipation of like more content coming, like you can't. It's the death of creativity. I feel like, like true creativity, but
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And I think like, I honestly think like you brought up a great point about like these games, these services are being created for audiences that don't exist yet. I think like Marvel's Avengers is a great example of that. Like and it almost feels like that the campaign, the way those characters played, like the whole design, it was like the co-op was developed first and then they made the campaign levels like based around that. Which is like a bad feeling. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? It just doesn't feel great.
Yeah, that was less like, we've got a great idea for like a really cool original Avengers story, and you can play through it with your friends, and then maybe there'll be more content later on. It's more like we're developing a platform to sell new Marvel characters on like an endless cycle forever, and like add in levels and stuff for them. And it's like,
and skins, all the skins.
Yeah, it's and like you can't make something beautiful that way. I don't know.
Right. And I think Suicide Squad has the exact same look. I think people are like wising up to this a little bit. And I think overall, like, you just, I really think if publishers want to scale back, or developers want to scale back these experiences into being like more linear, like I don't think that'll be I think that'll be well received. Honestly, I think people are like kind of exhausted of open world. Like, I don't think even I think Assassin's Creed, the next one is going to be like mostly linear, or they said it's going to feel mostly more like the original Assassin's Creed, and less.
I think they shrunk the scope a bit. Yeah,
which honestly is awesome.
Hell yeah, bring it on.
It's great. I think most games don't need to be open world, and one of the things I think Ragnarok did best was balancing that feeling of open world but also like linearness, because it's more like open areas, not open world, and you can run around to these areas, but there's still a very linear sense. Jedi Survivor did like a very similar thing, which was awesome. And they kind of nailed it as well. But yeah, man, your thoughts on that?
Crazy. It's crazy. It really is. I want to see more games. I just want to see more games with, smaller budgets and wackier ideas, and I hope that the indie scene will continue to provide those, because the big names are, they're in an arms race right now to create the biggest and the baddest thing. And it's all, unfortunately, they have a lot of the IPs that we grew up with that I love to see. But you know, we get really big and cool games out of it, but it's like not everything can be, you know, Call of Duty. Not everything can be Grand Theft Auto.
Right. And not everything needs to be.
Yeah, not
Not
everything should
everything
be.
needs to be. And I think a lot of games, I think a lot of IP will benefit from either trying something new with the IP or like just doing something that's a little bit more linear. I really do. And
Yeah,
I think you can reduce crunch and budget that way. And I think you can create more tailored creative experiences if you shrink down the scope. You put
yeah,
less strain on everything else. And I don't think that's something that like gamers, consumers are like going to be upset about
yeah, yeah,
if as long as the I think people care more about the quality of the experience than they do about the scope and size of the experience. And I
yeah.
think that's
I would
something
agree.
that is getting lost. And I think like a lot of the games are, like you said, they shareholders want platforms to continuously update and sell. They want to maximize the profits out of a game. So in return, we're trading scope and size for quality. And I think
Hmm.
that's a big shame. And
Yeah,
I don't really want to hear about big companies crying over their big budgets when scaling down these projects is something that I think like most people will want anyway.
yeah. At
So that's
least
really
for a
what it
while, at
is.
least give it a shot. You know,
Yeah.
see how it goes.
See how
Yeah,
it
try it
goes.
out. Yeah.
I mean, my favorite games this year were have so far been the RE4 remake, Ragnarok, and Jedi Survivor. And all of those games are pretty linear for the most part. You know, I don't think I played an open world game this year. And you know what? Like most of the actually all three of those, they're more so like open area. And I
Yeah, yeah.
really like that format a lot. I think it's really
Yeah, I
strong.
do too. I think
Yeah.
that that reminds me of the most ambitious kind of adventure games from, you know, an earlier era where we were
Yeah.
like given free reign with a lot of cool abilities and stuff to do, interesting gameplay mechanics within, you know, open but tightly designed environments.
Yes.
And yeah, I think
Yes. Like
that's, I want to
yes.
see more of a return to that.
Me too. All right. Well, last thing we'll talk about here, which is somewhat related to like the ballooning cost of games, but on the flip side, um, is game sales are actually down under the $70 price tag. So PS5 is selling fewer games but making more money with the $70 price tag. I think this is really interesting. So far, the experiment in jacking up the price of essentially all major games to $70 appears to be working. While we can't really look at Microsoft data thanks to many things appearing on Game Pass, though it too has started to increase prices to $70. Thanks to new Sony data, we can see two things. One, Sony is making record revenue from software sales, and two, Sony is seeing dramatic drops in actual game unit sales. Um, Tweaktown has a really interesting deep dive into this phenomenon where they go through all the available data we have from recent earning reveals. A main point is that while Sony had a record 6.367 billion in revenue for software, overall game unit sales year over year dropped dramatically by 39 million down to 264.2 million. That's a huge drop.
Hmm.
39 million units decrease year over year. That's a wild drop.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen some people try to spin this as a negative, but I'm not sure how you can. The entire point of the price increase is ultimately to make more money, and that seems to have worked. I'm not sure decreased unit sales matter all that much when revenue is setting records. Regardless, this will no doubt displease players who have not especially appreciated the price increase, but it doesn't really matter once it happened. There's no going back. Yeah, this is pretty wild. That's a massive drop in units. I am shocked by that. Like I do wonder. I think when the $70 price tag kind of got announced, I was a pretty big opponent of that. Like I thought like my viewpoint was essentially like I don't think games have changed enough from generation to generation to warrant $70. And
Hmm.
my bigger concern over that, which I still have, and I even mentioned it earlier, is that $70 for an individual game for an individual purchase for the average American person is like that is an astronomical cost. That is a wild ask of somebody, especially when after tax and everything, you're looking more at like 80-85 bucks. Like that's a
Yeah.
very expensive investment to make. Which again, like, makes it all the while like important for these games to be functioning products, which they haven't even really been as of late.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm coming around a little bit more to the $70 price point, because I do think, like, when I play something like Ragnarok or Jedi Survivor, or something really impressive, like, I feel like I got my money's worth. But I do think it's really expensive. It's really expensive, and I do think that is showing in the decrease of 32 million units, or sorry, 39 million units.
Hmm.
But it's wild that the revenue is up. That's actually a big surprise. I didn't think
Yeah.
a $10 increase would make that much of a difference, but apparently it is. And I also
Yeah.
think units are probably also down, because over the last few years, more people have signed for Game Pass, PS Plus. I think a lot of people just wait, either for
Yeah.
these games to hit the subscription services, or for the games to go on sale.
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of that has to do with it. But
Hmm.
but it is telling. It is telling. Um, and I'm kind of torn on it, because I think it's too expensive for like the average consumer.
Hmm.
But like we just saw, these game budgets are getting crazy, and
Yeah.
I think you can only go so long for a publisher to keep the price locked at 60. But like, are we gonna hit a day when it's $80, $90, $100? Like, how crazy is it gonna get? So it's
Yeah.
all very interesting to look at.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, games are one of those things where they haven't necessarily kept up with inflation, especially as the budgets have gone up. Like games actually used to be more expensive back in the 90s and stuff. Like a brand new N64 game at the time was like 70 or 80 or 90
Yeah, it's
dollars or something
crazy.
like that in 1990s money. And they hit that $60 price point for new big budget, like a first party title kind of thing. And they stayed there for so long as these budgets, these salaries, like all this inflation, all these things got bigger and bigger. And it really is crazy that it actually held on to 60 for as long as it did. It's one of those things where, like, yeah, it sucks. I hate paying more, but I get it. But at the same time, I hope that that increased revenue, that increased cost actually goes back to the developers, the people who are making the game, most of whom are very underpaid and very overworked. And I don't think they probably will. I think most of that money is going to go to the executives, the people in charge, which I think is a shame. Um,
Yeah, no,
but
for sure.
it's wild, like you said. That's a lot of money for most people. I'm in a very privileged position in that I love games and I make enough money to support my primary hobby and interest. And I'm an enthusiast. I'm a hardcore gamer and game player, and I wonder how much that cost affects people who maybe only buy like one game a year. There's a lot of people who only get like Zelda or only get FIFA or something like that, and I wonder. Games go on sale so often too these days, faster than they've ever done before, and it's like they're really unique. They're really unique as a product and as an art form, because we don't see this with movies. I mean, movies have been no one even buys movies anymore. They come out on Blu-ray and stuff. You can rent them, but like
But
it's
that's a
a
great point, right?
yeah.
Like, a lot of people wait for them to hit the subscription services. A lot of people
Yeah,
are
yeah.
waiting for these games now to hit subscription services, which I think is a big reason why you see such a drop in the units.
Yeah, and I wonder with the numbers for Sony sales and stuff, how much of that was, how that kind of breaks down, because it's like, oh, is that not counting sales? Is that only counting like launch weekends or first party titles or something like that? But it is interesting that, I mean, there's also been like less big releases, I think, too. And at least in the last
Yeah,
year, I feel like there
yeah.
wasn't that many.
2023
So
feels like the year that gaming is like back.
yeah, yeah, lots of stuff coming out.
Unfortunately, like, and I kind of wonder if that's a reason too why some of these games like unfinished, because like are we getting like we have such a stacked release calendar this year, right? People are
Yeah,
racing to like hit their release windows. They don't want to compete with other games. People want to like have their moment in the sun. And
yeah,
it's a lot of big projects that I'm sure were being worked on before and during COVID, and now it's like they want to get these projects out. Gaming's back. This is the year of the games. Like, the release calendar is insane, and I
yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder if like that a lot of that has to do with like with the brokenness of the releases, and if maybe next year will be like a little bit more spaced out and like
Yeah.
a little bit more I don't know, probably not, honestly, but
I
it's
hope so. That'd be nice.
yeah, it's such a big year for games. It's interesting the way like the direction the industry is going with the $70 price point, people just signing up for these subscription services, all of that. But I mean, they're making record revenue, so whatever, it seems to be working. But like you said, I hope it goes to developers. I doubt it will. Sega, like they're trying to unionize over there. I hope that trend follows up more, because I think the developers deserve better.
Yeah, they really do. They deserve far more protections than they have in this industry. They really get taken advantage of.
They deserve more protections, and then like they get forced into releasing these games that are like not ready to be released. They probably know that, and like developers just, they're getting it, like they have such a individual developers. They have such strong Twitter presences now that like it's a shame when their work gets put out in a state where they obviously know it's not ready. They don't. I'm sure it doesn't even have to be a developer. Nobody wants to be in that position.
Yeah.
Nobody. Like anybody at work, you don't want to be forced to present something to your boss when it's half done, 70% done. Like, you know, that's a shitty and scary feeling, and they're being thrown into like very public spotlights, and they have to eat, they have to take the heat. They got to eat the heat, and it's shitty. So hopefully, you know, if we see more game price increases, it goes back to them, because they fucking deserve it, honestly.
I just think the balancing act is just getting so tight. It really is, like between the budget, the costs, the profit, all that kind of thing. And you know, the higher it gets, the more risky it gets. We'll see more and more people shoot for it and miss, which, you know, will have an effect on the industry. And I wonder if that will be kind of what causes an eventual reset, because I don't know, it's sustainability, I think, is really the question. Like they're the word, you know, that's like the word of the day, the word of the week. Like, how sustainable is this in the long run? You know, can the industry be like this for 10 years, for 20 years, you know? It's just going to keep getting more and more expensive and crazier and crazier. And I don't know. I don't think it can. So it's an interesting time. Interesting time to be following it.
I agree. And also there's like all these games being services. There's only so many services that people can be subscribed to, right? Like,
so I don't have that many hours in the day. You know, I can only have so
many battle passes. Like, oh my God, please.
Yeah. Please, so many things I can keep track of mentally, let alone financially, and, you know, time-wise. Just like keeping track of all this stuff is crazy.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how long the publishers can keep their fingers in the what?
The pie. There's so much pie out there.
There's so much
all
pie
the developers.
There.
There's too many fingers for not enough pie. Or is there too much pie for not enough fingers? Or is it just right?
Let's let them figure it out. They can tell us. They can tell us next week.
They're footing the bill, so we just get to eat the pie once they're done.
All listeners, you can let us know too. Are there too many fingers? Or too many pies? Let us know.
And what's your favorite flavor?
And what's your favorite flavor? All right, let's cut it there with the fingers and the pies. Thank you again, everybody. This is episode 2. We will be back next week. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok at SRank Podcast. You can find myself on Twitter and Twitch at NoBananaSuits. If you want to chat it up more, I'll be going live Wednesdays, Thursdays around 5-6 p.m. and Saturdays around 3:30 p.m. Welsh, where can they find you?
Howdy, I'm Sean Welsh. I'm not currently on Twitch yet. Maybe I'll start streaming soon. We'll see. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at SeanWelshBrown. I'm an actor, voiceover artist, software developer. You know, love games, love tech. Sometimes tweet about it. Sometimes post pictures. So yeah,
go tweet at him. All right, everybody, stick your fingers in some pies this week, and we'll see you next week. All right, thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.